The master of masks, CIA's legendary disguise, Innovators, faces in the shadows. The night was thick with fog as the CIA's latest recruits gathered in a secluded training facility outside Langley. The building, unremarkable from the outside, held a world within its walls that few had ever glimpsed. A place where identities were forged, appearances could be molded like clay, and the line between reality and illusion blurred completely. Here, in this crucible of secrecy, the first lesson of the masterful art of disguise was about to begin. Agents in training were introduced to the world of masks, prosthetics, and illusion. Each face they would encounter in the field was potentially a key to survival, a doorway to intelligence, or a shield from detection. Instructors demonstrated transformations that seemed impossible. Ordinary-looking individuals metamorphosed into entirely different characters. Their features altered subtly yet convincingly, voices adjusted to perfection, posture and gait carefully choreographed. The recruits watched, astonished, as an instructor removed a hood to reveal a face entirely unrecognizable from the one they had seen moments before. This was the power of the mask, the ability to become someone else completely while leaving no trace of the original identity. In the shadows of the training hall, mannequins with intricate facial molds stood ready, each representing a different type of operative identity: journalists, businessmen, diplomats, tourists. The recruits were taught to apply prosthetics, adjust wigs, alter eye color with lenses, and even change the texture of their skin through makeup and small devices. Every subtle detail mattered. A wrinkle added or removed the contour of a cheekbone. The angle of a brow contributed to a persona that could deceive the most observant adversary. Trainers emphasized that in the world of espionage, the human eye could detect inconsistency, and the slightest imperfection might be the difference between success and exposure. Beyond physical transformation, the agents learned the psychology of disguise. It was not enough to wear a mask. One had to inhabit it fully. Behavior, tone of voice, movement patterns, and even breathing rhythms were meticulously studied. Recruits practiced mimicking gestures and speech patterns of people from different cultures, professions, and social classes. The instructors made it clear: a disguise was only effective if it was believable in every dimension, not just in appearance. To blend seamlessly, an agent had to think, act, and feel as the character they portrayed. Early exercises involved simple street interactions. A recruit would adopt a disguise and navigate a busy urban environment while instructors observed from concealed positions. Each movement was noted, every micro-expression analyzed. Some recruits faltered, giving away tension through rigid posture or inconsistent gestures. Others excelled, vanishing into crowds as if they belonged, their faces and behaviors merging effortlessly with the surrounding world. These exercises demonstrated that disguise was not merely cosmetic. It was an art form, a combination of technical skill, psychological insight, and improvisational talent. As the nights progressed, the training grew more advanced. Agents practiced rapid transformations, changing faces, voices, and clothing within minutes to escape simulated surveillance. Cameras recorded every angle, playback revealing subtle tells that could compromise a mission. The instructors stressed the importance of anticipation in real-world operations. Enemy agents, cameras, and informants could detect the smallest deviation. Every detail, every gesture, every syllable mattered. By mastering these elements, the agents would gain the ability to enter hostile environments, extract intelligence, and leave without ever being recognized. One evening, a special demonstration left a lasting impression. A veteran operative, long retired but renowned in the agency, performed a series of transformations so seamless that the recruits could not discern where one identity ended and another began. He walked among the trainees, adopting various personas, and none could recognize him. This was the epitome of the CIA's disguise crafts, the mastery of masks and the subtle psychology behind them. The exercise was a reminder that espionage was as much about perception as it was about information, and those who controlled perception controlled reality. By the end of the first phase, the recruits understood a fundamental truth in the world of covert operations. Every face could be false, every expression a calculated choice, and every shadow a potential concealment. The ability to become someone else entirely was a power unlike any other, a skill that could save lives, manipulate events, and secure secrets. Faces in the shadows were not merely masks, they were gateways to intelligence, shields against danger, and the very essence of the CIA's legendary art of disguise. The journey into mastering this craft had only just begun. In the quiet, dimly lit rooms of the CIA's advanced training facility, the true essence of disguise began to take shape. The art of becoming, as instructors called it, was not merely about wearing a mask or changing outward appearance. It was the delicate science of inhabiting an entirely new identity. Recruits learned that the physical transformations they had practiced in Part 1 were only the beginning. To truly become someone else, one had to adopt the persona fully: voice, mannerisms, reactions, and even mindset. The slightest inconsistency could betray a carefully constructed illusion, putting both mission and life at risk. The classroom was filled with mannequins, prosthetic tools, wigs of every style and color, and devices designed to alter posture and gait. But alongside these tangible tools, instructors introduced a new layer: psychological immersion. Trainees were tasked with studying real-world personas: shopkeepers, diplomats, journalists, academics, learning how they thought, how they gestured, and how they responded under stress. Video simulations allowed agents to practice reading subtle cues in speech patterns and micro-expressions, reinforcing the idea that every detail contributed to authenticity. A disguise, they were told, could fool the eye but never the mind if it was incomplete. Practical exercises took the recruits into urban environments, forcing them to navigate busy streets and crowded markets while inhabiting their new identities. Each interaction was a test of credibility. A simple request for directions, a casual conversation with a street vendor, or a fleeting interaction with a passerby became opportunities to evaluate consistency and realism. Instructors observed through hidden cameras, meticulously noting hesitation, unnatural gestures, or deviations from the adopted persona. Those who failed were reminded that in real operations, the consequences were far graver than embarrassment. Exposure could compromise an entire mission, endanger fellow agents, or even cost lives. One of the most challenging exercises involved rapid role switching. Recruits were required to move from one persona to another in minutes, adjusting appearance, posture, and speech seamlessly. A street artist could become a tourist. A journalist could morph into a corporate executive, all without attracting attention. The lesson was clear: adaptability was essential. In the field, operatives never knew what environment they would enter or what adversaries might observe them. Mastery of identity meant fluidity, control, and the ability to inhabit multiple roles convincingly. Language and accent training were integrated into this process. Agents learned not just to speak differently, but to internalize regional intonations, colloquialisms, and cultural subtleties. An effective disguise relied on total immersion. A perfectly molded face could fail if the speech betrayed the operative's true origins. Instructors emphasized that the mind and body must work in harmony. Gestures, posture, rhythm of movement, and even eye contact were critical components of authenticity. A disguise was not an act. It was a fully embodied reality. Advanced prosthetics and makeup techniques were now paired with behavioral simulations. Trainees practiced altering body shape, adjusting height and weight through padding and clothing, and manipulating facial expressions with microprosthetics. High-definition cameras captured every angle, providing immediate feedback. Subtle adjustments, how one raised an eyebrow, the tilt of a shoulder, the pacing of steps could mean the difference between blending seamlessly into a crowd or drawing dangerous attention. Every detail mattered, and perfection required repetition, observation, and rigorous self-discipline. As the weeks passed, recruits faced increasingly complex scenarios designed to test every aspect of their training. One simulation involved entering a high-security building under the guise of a foreign diplomat. They had to navigate guards, sensors, and casual observers while maintaining a persona completely foreign to their own identity. Every decision, every reaction, and every subtle cue had to align with the adopted role. Through these trials, the recruits learned that true mastery of disguise required more than tools or makeup. It demanded a profound understanding of human behavior, psychology, and the art of perception. By the end of this phase, the trainees began to internalize the philosophy of the master disguiser. A mask is only as effective as the person inhabiting it. Becoming someone else was not a surface-level change. It was a complete transformation of presence, thought, and intention. The art of becoming went beyond deception. It was a form of living intelligence, where perception became reality, shadows became allies, and invisibility was achieved through total immersion. For the CIA, these skills were not merely tactical, they were a lifeline. A means to operate undetected in hostile territories to extract critical intelligence, and to navigate a world where the line between friend and foe was often invisible. The term behind the curtain represented far more than an instructional phrase inside the CIA's elite disguise division. It marked a passage into a hidden craft where creativity, discipline, and precision merged to shape operatives who could disappear into any crowd. Beyond makeup and transformation drills, recruits entered a domain built like a secret workshop, a place where each room carried a purpose. Each method built toward flawless deception, and every detail mattered more than the last. Inside these specialized halls, expert technicians sculpted prosthetics and facial structures with a mastery equal to high-end artists. Using silicone, polymers, and refined materials, they built faces capable of expressing emotion as naturally as skin. A blink, a tilt of the head, or a passing glance would never betray the illusion. Instructors insisted that the disguise's strength was not only in the mask, but in how it interacted with movement, light, and observation. A poorly aligned wrinkle or a hairline that lacked natural flow could compromise an entire mission. Every inch was reviewed, reshaped, and perfected under careful eyes. Wig creation became its own universe of precision. Strands were matched for tone and density, blending different shades to create fully natural profiles. Operatives practiced shifting between cultural identities using subtle hair adjustments. Eyes were altered through advanced lenses, capable of changing not only color, but the impression of alertness or age. Dental inserts adjusted jawlines and smiles to subtly rewrite facial structure. The process demanded patience and endurance, but the reward was invaluable. A disguise so convincing that even trained observers failed to notice anything unusual. Technology played an equally significant role. Micro-devices were embedded into prosthetics, allowing agents to communicate silently while appearing entirely ordinary. Cameras, no larger than a grain of rice, were hidden within collars, accessories, or artificial hairlines. Recruits were trained to activate, conceal, and maneuver these tools without disturbing the integrity of the persona they were inhabiting. Every piece of equipment was engineered to merge seamlessly with appearance, creating a balance between covert capability and perfect invisibility. To test these identities, recruits entered controlled simulations designed to challenge even the most flawless disguises. They navigated streets set up like bustling foreign districts, checkpoints guarded by trained evaluators, and crowded environments meant to induce stress. Observers attempted to detect any inconsistency, shift in body language, a misplaced gesture, or micro-expressions that didn't match the created persona. Each trial exposed weaknesses and highlighted strengths. The training made one truth clear: a disguise was not just something worn, it was something lived. Behind the curtain also taught the importance of contingency. A disguise could falter under weather, physical strain, or unexpected scrutiny. Recruits learned how to correct small faults instantly, adjust behavior without hesitation, or abandon an identity in favor of an improvised alternative. They practiced changing posture, altering speech cadence and adopting new habits within seconds. Adaptation became as essential as the disguise itself. Veteran operatives then shared insights from real missions, recounting how a minor detail once saved an undercover assignment, or how a gesture nearly exposed someone in a hostile environment. These mentorship sessions carried the weight of experience, emphasizing that disguise was a balance of technique, psychology, and sharp awareness. It demanded constant attention, absolute calm, and the ability to think several steps ahead. By the end of this segment, recruits gained a deep appreciation for the extraordinary machinery behind the art of disguise. The tools, prosthetics, and technologies were not simply equipment, they were extensions of intelligence work. Behind the curtain, forged operatives capable of stepping into any setting unseen, manipulating perception with precision, and functioning in silence within the world's most guarded spaces. With this foundation complete, they were prepared for the next stage, refining posture, behavior, and operational fluency to become true masters of masks. The pursuit of the perfect disguise was the pinnacle of CIA training, where artistry, science, and psychology merged to create an operative capable of vanishing into any environment. By this stage, recruits had mastered prosthetics, makeup, behavior, and technology. But now, the challenge was to integrate all elements seamlessly, leaving no trace of the original identity. The perfect disguise was not just a mask or a costume. It was a fully immersive persona, believable under scrutiny from both the human eye and the most advanced surveillance systems. In a specialized training wing, agents faced a series of meticulously crafted scenarios designed to simulate real-world operations. Cafes, marketplaces, corporate offices, and diplomatic receptions were recreated in high-fidelity detail. Each environment presented new challenges: different lighting, background noise, cultural nuances, and human interactions. Recruits were tasked with navigating these spaces while embodying their assigned persona. Every expression, gesture, and tone of voice had to be consistent. Every movement had to match the character's identity. Failure meant detection, while success meant total invisibility within the crowd. Prosthetic application and costume selection became exercises in precision. Trainees learned to tailor each disguise not only to appearance, but also to social context. Subtle adjustments, slight change in posture, a hand gesture, or a facial expression could alter the perception of the operative's age, profession, or mood. Even clothing was carefully analyzed. Fabrics, patterns, and accessories were chosen to support the persona and prevent any element from standing out. The goal was seamless integration into the environment, where no observer could suspect that anything was out of place. Voice modulation and language skills were critical components. Agents practiced speech patterns, regional accents, and colloquial expressions to perfect their auditory disguise. Small details, such as the tempo of conversation or the use of idiomatic phrases, were essential for authenticity, coupled with body language and facial expression. These elements created a multidimensional identity capable of convincing even highly trained adversaries. Recruits underwent repeated drills, constantly evaluated by instructors who scrutinized every nuance for inconsistencies. Technology was subtly embedded to enhance operational effectiveness without compromising believability. Tiny earpieces allowed for discreet communication, concealed cameras provided situational awareness, and sensors monitored physiological responses to stress. These devices were seamlessly integrated into the disguise, invisible to onlookers and undetectable under close inspection. The combination of technology, behavioral mastery, and physical transformation elevated the perfect disguise from a simple mask to a complete operational tool, enabling agents to navigate hostile or sensitive environments with unparalleled discretion. Field simulations became increasingly complex. Recruits were tasked with infiltrating secure facilities, mingling with diplomats, or passing critical information without detection. Every detail was crucial. A delayed glance, a misaligned accessory, or an inconsistent gesture could expose the operative. Agents learned to anticipate and manipulate the perceptions of others, using subtle cues to reinforce their assumed identity. Each successful exercise demonstrated the power of complete immersion, where the persona was not just worn, but lived, with confidence and fluidity. The instructors emphasized one core principle: the perfect disguise was never static. Adaptability was key. Agents were trained to observe, analyze, and adjust in real time, responding to changing circumstances and unexpected scrutiny. Even the most flawless preparation could encounter variables in the field, and the ability to adjust instantly could determine mission success or failure. Through repetition and refinement, recruits internalized these principles, understanding that the art of disguise was both craft and instinct, logic and creativity. By the conclusion of this stage, trainees had achieved a profound mastery of deception. They were no longer simply wearing a mask. They had become their character, seamlessly blending into the world around them. The perfect disguise was a testament to discipline, ingenuity, and psychological insight, a vital tool for survival and intelligence collection in a world where exposure could be fatal. For the CIA, these operatives represented the pinnacle of covert operations, individuals capable of entering any environment, observing without being seen, and influencing events while remaining entirely invisible. The world of espionage was a realm of contradictions. Everything was visible, yet hidden. Every action could reveal or conceal, and every operative existed in layers of reality few could perceive. In the fifth stage of the CIA's Master of Masks program, recruits were introduced to shadows within shadows, a concept that challenged their understanding of disguise. It was no longer enough to blend into crowds or adopt a single persona. Operatives had to operate within multiple layers simultaneously, remaining undetected by both enemies and allies alike. Training simulations now became exercises in psychological depth. Agents were assigned dual identities within the same environment, tasked with conveying different personas to different audiences. A single operative might appear as a casual tourist to one observer, while simultaneously acting as a high-ranking diplomat to another. The challenge was not merely in appearance, but in subtle cues. Posture, voice modulation, micro-expressions, and behavior had to be precise, consistent, and contextually appropriate for each shadow. Failure meant exposure. Success meant seamless control over perception itself. Recruits studied the art of observation as much as the art of disguise. Every human interaction contained signals. Fleeting glances, hand movements, or the rhythm of speech could betray intent or identity. Shadow agents learned to read these cues while maintaining their own personas flawlessly. They practiced mirrored behavior, adopting subtle traits of those they observed to reinforce the authenticity of their disguises. Instructors emphasized that in espionage, perception often mattered more than reality. To control perception was to control the narrative, and shadows within shadows demanded mastery of this principle. Advanced technological integration became a critical component. Microcameras and sensors embedded in disguises provided live feedback, allowing agents to monitor how effectively they were blending into their surroundings. Artificial intelligence-assisted analysis in training labs assessed every movement, gesture, and facial expression, highlighting areas that could compromise an operative's invisibility. The feedback loop was relentless, and each session refined the ability to maintain multiple layers of identity simultaneously, ensuring adaptability under dynamic conditions. Field exercises grew more intricate. Recruits were inserted into simulated urban operations where multiple surveillance teams and simulated adversaries observed them from different angles. An operative's ability to maintain dual personas under this scrutiny was tested rigorously. Every decision, from which route to take to how to interact with individuals, was analyzed. Success required anticipation, intuition, and an unerring sense of timing. Agents who mastered these exercises demonstrated a remarkable capacity for mental flexibility, able to inhabit complex identities without hesitation or error. One particularly revealing drill involved infiltration of a mock embassy gala. recruits assumed elaborate disguises, each blending into distinct social strata. They had to extract intelligence while navigating overlapping observation from multiple simulated threats. A single misstep, a glance in the wrong direction, an inconsistent accent, or a mismatched gesture would reveal the operative. Those who succeeded did so by inhabiting their personas completely, thinking, reacting, and moving as if the characters were real, leaving no trace of the operative beneath the mask. The culmination of Shadows Within Shadows taught an essential lesson. Mastery of disguise was more than physical alteration. It was cognitive, psychological, and tactical. Operatives learned to anticipate the expectations of others, to manipulate perception with subtlety, and to maintain composure under the most complex conditions. The training instilled a profound understanding that in espionage, the invisible hand often wielded the greatest power. Agents capable of existing in multiple layers of reality were no longer merely disguised. They were indistinguishable from the fabric of the environments they infiltrated. By the end of this stage, recruits had transcended traditional notions of disguise. They were capable of moving unseen, influencing outcomes without detection, and operating within a continuum of reality and illusion. Shadows Within Shadows was not simply a lesson in deception. It was a philosophy of covert existence, a testament to the CIA. As ingenuity in cultivating operatives who could navigate the most complex and perilous environments while remaining quite literally invisible. In the clandestine world of espionage, the most effective influence is one that is unseen. By the sixth phase of the CIA's Master of Masks program, recruits had learned to vanish into crowds, adopt multiple personas, and operate within layers of shadows. Now, they were introduced to a more profound principle: the invisible hand. It was the subtle guidance, the quiet manipulation, and the untraceable intervention that allowed agents to control outcomes without ever being observed. In essence, it was the art of shaping reality while remaining a ghost. The invisible hand began in the mind. Recruits were taught to anticipate the reactions of others, to predict behavior, and to exploit patterns with precision. Every gesture, word, or visual cue in the field could be used to nudge individuals or groups in a desired direction. The instructors emphasized patience and timing. Influence, unlike force, must be imperceptible to succeed. Through meticulous observation and calculated intervention, an agent could alter the course of events while leaving no trace of their involvement. This was the true power of disguise, the ability to operate not only physically unseen, but strategically untraceable. Practical exercises combined the skills of disguise with covert manipulation. Agents were inserted into controlled simulations where multiple objectives had to be achieved simultaneously. A single operative might need to extract sensitive information, redirect attention, and ensure that no suspicion arose while maintaining a convincing persona. Observers, trained to detect deception, scrutinized every movement and interaction. Success demanded flawless integration of psychological acuity, behavioral mastery, and environmental awareness. The invisible hand was not about heroics or confrontation. It was about subtlety, control, and precision. Technology played a pivotal role in extending the reach of the invisible hand. Covert communication devices, embedded microcameras, and AI-assisted behavioral analytics allowed agents to coordinate operations with precision while remaining undetected. Data collected from these tools informed decisions in real time, enabling operatives to adjust tactics instantly. Every intervention, whether it was a discrete signal, a redirected gaze, or a timed conversation, was calculated to maximize impact while minimizing exposure. The combination of human skill and technological augmentation created a force that operated invisibly yet decisively. One scenario involved a high-profile diplomatic event, simulated with dozens of participants, multiple observers, and layered security measures. Recruits were tasked with influencing conversations, guiding movements, and extracting information without being noticed. Success relied on anticipation, understanding the motivations and expectations of each individual, aligning gestures, speech, and timing flawlessly. The invisible hand allowed them to subtly orchestrate outcomes, demonstrating that influence did not require visibility, it required mastery of perception and context. Mentorship from veteran operatives emphasized the philosophy behind the training. Those who mastered the invisible hand were not merely skilled agents. They were architects of influence, capable of shaping events without revealing themselves. Historical examples from CIA operations illustrated how subtle manipulations, carefully executed, could alter political, social, or economic dynamics without leaving evidence. The lesson was clear. Power often lies not in what is seen, but in what goes unnoticed. By the conclusion of this phase, recruits internalized a key principle. True mastery of disguise and influence was inseparable. To operate effectively in the field, an agent must not only appear credible, but must also guide perception, steer outcomes, and remain invisible in every sense. The invisible hand was the culmination of all previous training prosthetics. Behavior, psychology, technology, and represented the pinnacle of covert operational capability. It was the ultimate expression of the CIA's artistry in intelligence, a force that could move silently, act decisively, and remain forever unseen, leaving only the consequences of its intervention. The final chapter of the Master of Masks program, Unmasking the Legacy, was not about removing a physical mask, it was about revealing the profound impact and enduring lessons of decades of disguise mastery. Over years of clandestine operations, countless operatives had walked the delicate line between visibility and invisibility, shaping history from the shadows. Now, the CIA sought to codify these experiences, ensuring that the artistry, psychology, and strategic genius behind disguise would continue to guide future generations. Recruits observed historical case studies, some classified, others declassified, tracing how operatives had manipulated perception, infiltrated hostile territories, and extracted critical intelligence. These lessons were cinematic in their scope. Missions where a single change in posture or glance altered the outcome, where a carefully crafted persona enabled operatives to survive environments that would have overwhelmed ordinary individuals. Each story emphasized a single principle. The mask was a tool, but mastery of human perception was the ultimate weapon. Workshops were dedicated to reflection and synthesis. Trainees reviewed the prosthetics, technologies, and psychological techniques they had learned, analyzing how each element could be combined in innovative ways. The instructors stressed that legacy was not static. It evolved as environments, adversaries, and technology changed. A legendary disguise from the past could inform a contemporary operation, but only if the agent understood the underlying principles: observation, adaptation, immersion, and subtle influence. Legacy, therefore, was not merely about skill, it was about knowledge, judgment, and intuition passed down through mentorship. Advanced simulations challenged recruits to apply everything they had learned. Missions involved multiple personas, layered objectives, and high-stakes environments designed to push their abilities to the limit. Success required more than flawless disguise, demanded strategic thinking, the ability to anticipate human behavior, and the subtle orchestration of influence embodying the philosophy of the invisible hand. Trainees discovered that true mastery meant becoming a conduit for intelligence itself, an operative whose presence shaped outcomes while leaving no trace. The human element remained central. Veteran operatives shared stories of mentorship, improvisation, and ingenuity in the field. They recounted how innovation often emerged in moments of crisis, how quick thinking, combined with a deep understanding of human psychology, allowed agents to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Recruits learned that the legacy of the Master of Masks was not just in techniques, but in cultivating intuition, resilience, and creativity. These intangible qualities distinguished legendary agents from the merely skilled. As the training concluded, recruits undertook a final exercise to create an original persona that incorporated prosthetic mastery, behavioral immersion, technological augmentation, and psychological manipulation. Each agent executed a fully immersive operation within a simulated international environment, judged on credibility, adaptability, and operational effectiveness. The exercise revealed that mastery of disguise was not a single skill, but a composite of interdependent disciplines, all harmonized through experience, observation, and intelligence. Unmasking the Legacy also emphasized responsibility. With the power to manipulate perception, influence outcomes, and move unseen came a moral and strategic obligation. Agents were trained to respect the boundaries of lawful intelligence work, to prioritize operational integrity, and to recognize that the greatest legacy of the Master of Masks was not deception itself, but the preservation of human life, security, and global stability. By the end of Part 7, the recruits emerged as true masters of disguise, operatives capable of adopting any identity, navigating any environment, and influencing any situation without detection. They carried forward the CIA's rich heritage of innovation, creativity, and strategic subtlety. Embodying the essence of the Master of Masks, the final lesson was clear. In a world of shadows, perception is reality, and those who master it leave a legacy that endures beyond masks, across decades and through the unbroken continuum of covert operations.